Hello and welcome to the Healthcare Facilities Network. I am your host, Peter Martin, president of Gosselin Martin Associates. As always, thank you for clicking on this video. Today's video is episode 3 of Filling the Pipeline. As were our past episodes, this episode of Filling the Pipeline is also a two-parter. We have a new group of guests for you today. We have Jim Hogle, we have Ryan Gagnon, and we have Jordan Smith. It's an interesting crew of 3. They all come from different demographics. Jim is the elder statesman of the group. So Jim, if you're the elder statesman of this group, I guess I would be too, because Jim and I are the same age. So Jim's the elder statesman, most experience out of the group. Ryan is at the other end of the spectrum. He's the young guy of the group, and he calls himself the young guy in the video you're about to watch. So we'll call Ryan the young guy for this intro, and then we have Jordan Smith, who is in the middle, relative roughly to the age. So different perspectives that are offered. Jim talks a little bit about how the field has changed from 30, 35 years ago. Both Jim and Ryan went to maritime academies, but the years of experience is a little bit different. So we have episode 1 where we talk a little bit about the finance aspect of it. We talk about speaking the language of the CFO. We talk about changes in the field, and it's a very interesting conversation. And then episode 2, we talk a little bit more about the issues that are plaguing the field today relative to finding employees. We kick part 2 off with Jordan talking about his unique approach to finding and hiring employees for facilities management, and then Ryan jumps in. Ryan began as an intern, and so Ryan, in the story you're about to hear, or that you will hear in part 2, he echoes what we've talked about a couple of times on the Healthcare Facilities Network. As an intern, Ryan began working in hospitals his freshman year, and we have heard numerous times on this channel that one of the keys to filling that pipeline with younger folks is getting them when they're early, or when they're early in their college career. And certainly that was the case with Ryan. He started his freshman year, and he interned all 4 years in college. And so all 3 of them in episode 2 talk about the uniqueness of this role. So this is an interesting conversation. I like both parts of it are a little bit different. And so my thanks to my 3 guests, who I will introduce in the upcoming video. So this introduction will serve for both part 1 and part 2 of episode 3 of Filling the Pipeline. The terminology to name these shows reminds me a little bit of kind of those 1970s detective series that you would have seen. I see them occasionally on your TV land or your older channels on your cable system. So anyways, maybe you don't have cable, maybe you're a millennial and you ditched cable. You probably have. So that's why we have these discussions about filling the pipeline. And so with that, Peter Martin from Gosselin Martin Associates and the Healthcare Facilities Network, I hope you enjoy both episodes of Filling the Pipeline. Thanks for watching.
Hello, and welcome to the Healthcare Facilities Network. I am your host, Peter Martin, president of Gosselin Martin Associates, and this is another episode. This is episode 3 of our Filling the Pipeline. I used to have, I worked at a construction company years ago, and the president of the construction company, he was a marketing guy, and he was really good at marketing. He had worked for Coke, and he was a smart guy, and he would start every meeting with kind of the goal of our organization, and every meeting started with it, and you just got tired of hearing it. And I think that I'm there now relative to the Healthcare Facilities Network. I say this with every video, but I say it because I think it's really important. Filling the pipeline is the genesis of the Healthcare Facilities Network, because we need more people coming into this discipline. So I start every video with that because I just want to remind people, because I look at this, I look at the momentum that we can hopefully gain, kind of like a snowball rolling downhill, right? That snowball rolls downhill, we get more and more people, we verbalize, and we get out there that this network exists because this career exists. And that's why I'm happy that these 3 gentlemen have joined me today for episode 3 of Filling the Pipeline. I'm going to ask them to introduce themselves. And we're going to start first with the gentleman to my left on the screen.
All right, good morning. Thanks, Pete. My name is Jordan Smith. I'm the Administrative Director of Facility Operations for two of our campuses in just North Tampa. It's Zephyr Hills and Dade City, Florida. I have operational oversight for property, construction, compliance, EVS, security, maintenance and repair, anything else they want to throw at me. So other duties as assigned, as everybody jokes, right? So
Yes.
So that's me, and I've worked for Admin Health for the last 10 years and enjoy every minute of it.
That's the catch-all, Jordan, at the end of every job description, right? Other
It
duties
is.
as assigned.
If everybody uses
anything,
it.
we got you. Thank you, Jordan. Jim, why don't we go down to you?
Sure. I'm Jim Hogle. I'm the Corporate Vice President for Facilities Management and Operations for Robert Johnson Barnabas Health. We're a 14 hospital network, largest in New Jersey. I'm responsible for all facilities management, which would include MEP construction. We do probably $60–70 million of MEP construction, all EOC, safety, and the traditional facilities role. Been doing this for about 30 years. As Jordan, past roles, obviously security, EVS, biomed, all have reported through me. But at we're a huge organization, so there's definitely more, I would just say, not silos, but more divisions. Things are separated a little bit differently in some organizations. But been here almost 7 years now, and it's been a great operation. Really enjoy myself.
Excellent. Thank you, Jim. Last but not least,
Ryan Gagnon. I'm the Director of Engineering for Dartmouth Hitchcock Medical Center. I oversee about 3 million square feet of the main hospital, as well as offsites and MOBs. I've been here just over 5 months.
Yes. Yes, he has. And thank you, Ryan, and thank you all for appearing. What I like about this group is you're all at kind of different points. Ryan, as you just said, you're the young guy, right? Jordan, you're kind of that mid-career, and Jim, you and I, granted, you're in a different role, and I am, we're on the older side, which is hard to believe. Jim and I talked. Jim, you and I started talking probably 2015, 2016, and part of the reason we started to talk was we would talk about your mom and the New York Mets, who beat the Boston Red Sox in the 1986 World Series. And
Absolutely.
we started talking about Ryan. That's so 86. 86 seems like yesterday.
That's right.
I feel like I watched Game 6 yesterday.
Right.
And you didn't. So that's what I like, though. There's you guys are all at different career points. And just so people know, Ryan had reached out to me after the episode 1 of Filling the Pipeline. And if you haven't watched it, I'd encourage you to watch it. But we had folks from Mass Maritime there. And Ryan and I know each other from New England. And Ryan said, hey, like the show, I went to Maritime. I went to Mass Maritime. And so I said, hey, why don't you appear on an episode? And I think that if you hear something on any of these shows that interests you or that touches a nerve with you, feel free to reach out. Let's start though, Jim. As the senior level person in this group, what have you seen over your 30 years relative to the change in the industry that's kind of put us at this point? And we know there's a lack of people, right? We can't do anything about that. But have you seen changes in healthcare facilities management through your career that kind of arrive us at this point in time right now?
Yeah, I think that, and Ryan, I'm a maritime grad also. So, I sailed and then came shoreside, I was a second assistant engineer, then came shoreside, to work as a director of engineering, a small hospital. I think the dynamics of facilities management has so many facets to it, and what exactly are people looking for? When we talk to our HR department, we have a lot of what their perspective of it is, what the job actually is. I mean, we have people that are, our code experts, people who just want to do real estate, people who just want to do operations, guys who just want to do construction. And I think that, what I've seen as a change, when I first started, we would do all the construction, we would do all the construction, the operations, but things have begun so specialized and also so complex. The amount of regulatory compliance when we first started. I started in healthcare. I remember I went to a Joint Commission seminar in the early 90s, and I said to the guy, I'm getting old. It was plant technology and safety management. He told me when I started, it was just plant technology. So I realized that he was a little bit older than me, and I'm going to be 57 this year, and
Right,
so I think that I thought that the complexity of the jobs have really changed, where like facility operations has really come a long way, in developing the right formula, of how to do it, and really developing plans to, because you're seeing these facilities are, coming to end of life. A lot of these facilities that we're working in have been underinvested, deferred maintenance for 20, 30 years. So I think that we've seen a lot of changes of how people start seeing the roles. So I think that the separations of roles of facility operations, which is maintaining the facility, maintaining the infrastructure, maintaining the PMs, maintaining compliance, then going to construction, working in a occupied building of that specialty to do that, and then breakdowns of like safety management, which typically falls under the facility management role, at least in a traditional model. And so I think that a lot of specialties have broken down, where more the guy used to be the kind of like the sweeper in soccer. I'm not a big soccer guy, but I think it's a sweeper or stopper, but
yeah, okay,
it has to be that all-around player, that can play, offense or defense. But I think it's becoming more specialized as at least in a large organization. I mean, Barnabas is a tremendous organization, but has become more specialized in those areas. And real estate management, I think that healthcare has realized they have a lot of real estate that, they're not managing as well as they should be from a real estate management standpoint. I think that we're really starting to understand that going forward, and getting people on board who really understand how to manage, not just the compliance, because we do the compliance, but there's other aspects of real estate management that are just more than just compliance, and making sure that the place is painted and stuff like that. That's how I've seen some of the change, Peter.
So Jim, I want to build on that, and I'm sorry to interrupt, but I'm seeing the same exact thing in my organization. Is this is my conclusion, is our CFOs and our finance teams are so focused on learning the business of healthcare, right? And it's extremely complex. I can't even begin to understand the intricacies of, billing CMS, right? I mean, and nor do I want to. That's not my world. And that's something that they have to understand and appreciate. And so facilities is not something that they spend a lot of time thinking about, nor do they have a lot of experience with. And I think when we go to them and we talk our world, and we try to explain our perspectives and our plight in life, they don't fully understand where we're coming from. I think that we represent a cost center to them, and they want to minimize that cost center, and they don't equate the balance sheet impacts of this deferred maintenance. I mean, this is hidden liabilities, and if they listen to us, then those liabilities are going to have to go on the balance sheet, and it's going to affect them in a negative way. And it's, at least that's my that's what gets me through the day anyway, is realizing that they probably don't want to hear from me, because it just means more cost to them.
Yeah, I'd like to add to that, Jordan. So Jordan, having been doing this a long time, one of my old mentors, who was also a maritime guy, taught me that you got to write your plan. You got to write the plan, you got to communicate the plan, you got to implement the plan, monitor it, and change it. If we never write a plan, I mean, just think about the average, and I don't know the numbers, Peter, but probably the average CEO is probably 4.5 years, right? For a facility, 4 to 5 years, right?
Yep.
So someone comes in and they change the plan, right? And they may be more of a visionary than the past person, right? And finance with decreasing revenue every year, and reduced market share and stuff like that. I think that you need to have a plan of what your plan is and have it approved and move forward. The plan could change, but I think that we suffer from a lot of things where lack of metricing, and Peter's heard me lament about this for the last couple of years, and at Barnabas we're highly metric, so we know how much dollars per square foot we spend on contracts, gas and oil. I mean, we were very highly metric, manpower and things like that, which has been very advantageous to us to get projects delivered and so on. But I think that facilities managers have suffered from not really writing a plan, both from infrastructure. I mean, we're good at master planning. We're going to build a new building. We're going to get a new service. We're going to do this. That's different than writing infrastructure MEPs. And I had a discussion with my team in the last couple of days talking about, guys like yourself, Ryan, and even you, Jordan, when I first started, we had laundries, you know, and we started phasing out laundries, mostly due to fire issues, right? And other items that were going on. But we always had steam. We had these huge boilers and never had a problem with it. So when we build something, no one talks about adding another $3 or $4 million for a boiler and running it, you know, on emergency power. We don't talk about it because they're there. But today, like guys like yourself, Jordan, and Ryan are going to be places where they don't even talk about that anymore. Like now you got to build more infrastructure for it because we're not building them into those facilities anymore. If you looked at it, like these facilities that we're building, at least in the Northeast, I don't know about other areas, right? But at least in the Northeast are old. And we have the infrastructure that we've been building on, at least since I started in 93. So, you know, that's going to kind of run out without these plans to improve the infrastructure, you know, and really deliver an infrastructure that can build on for your guys' next 20, 30-year career, in my opinion, anyway.
I agree.
You brought up two major issues, I believe, you know, relative to kind of filling the pipeline. And one, you mentioned complexity of the role. And then the second thing that was mentioned was turnover in the C-suite. You know, your CEOs who turn over every 3 to 5 years. But also one of the trends that I see, and I've seen it more in larger organizations, and Jordan, I think you hit on this part, is some of these larger healthcare organizations, and we're going in that route, right? I mean, these national large behemoths, I've seen some of them have the propensity to cycle younger folks through, not that there's anything wrong with younger folks, right? Ryan doesn't know through that CFO position, though. They cycle them through a number of C-level positions to get them the experience. They move them around the country, but they're moving every 2 to 3 years. So they never, and this is more of a weakness at a system level, not necessarily, they don't have the depth and breadth to understand the totality of the operation. So it's not just facilities, it's across the board. They're in, they're out, but they try to make a mark while they're in, which trickling down has a negative effect. And I'm not asking any of you gentlemen to comment negatively on where you are, but I mean, I think that's a trend that's a negative for most everybody who's in an industry. Do you agree, disagree, or just don't have to say anything?
Well, I agree, but I think the initiatives have to come from the corporate level, right? So those local executives that move around, like you stated, I agree that, you know, they don't stay long enough, and it's not necessarily a bad thing, but they're not there long enough to see something all the way through. We're putting together a 10-year capital spending plan. I'm going to need a chiller replaced. I'm going to need a boiler replaced, and it's going to be 6 years out, and we need to start planning for it now. This is the capital that I'm going to need down the road. And they're not there to see that all through, right? And so by the time you get there, you get a new CFO that wants to kick it down the road 3 years, and then all of a sudden that's happened 3 times.
Yeah.
You know, where our industry needs to do a better job is at the next level above, is setting that tone and that mission statement for, hey, we will keep our facilities within this ratio, within this metric, within this, you know, dollar allotment, and we're going to appropriately fund to take care of our buildings. One of the things that, you know, Florida is experiencing is we have significant population growth. Everybody wants to move to the sunshine state. No taxes, warm weather, you know, lots of reasons. But so we're building new hospitals, right? And so it takes a huge amount of capital to build new hospitals, and it stars our existing infrastructure. And it's just, you know, it's just one of the things that we have to contend with.
I think Peter, and I'm going to add to what Jordan said, is that so I think moving men and women around is a lot of ways good too, right? I mean, these are people that are you know, possibly the future superstars, right? You know, to lead us, you know, into the future. Maybe some aren't either, right? But they're certainly, hopefully they've been tagged as hopefully that they see the vision for the future. But I think that from a facilities management standpoint, we lack, and I have an MBA in corporate finance, right? But you know, we lack the discussion of how to talk to our finance team. You know, we don't talk net present value, we don't talk life cycle costs, right? So
it's not the language we speak.
Right. And I've learned, and more so in the last maybe 3 or 4 years, maybe I should learn it sooner, but for the last 3 or 4 years, you start talking life cycle costs, net present value, and start putting that in financial models. You get more attention, you know, from the C-suite in order to understand the model. Because I mean, I can tell you that if one of my guys came to me and said, Jim, I want to replace the chiller, first thing I say is, you know, besides the size of it and all this, some of the questions, the technical part, like, how old is it? You know, if they told me it's 22 years old, I'd be like, okay, you know, like it wouldn't even catch my attention. But from a ASHRAE life cycle cost, it's past its life, right? It's considered no value, and whatever they're doing on the balance sheet is a different world. Depreciating, that's not my world. But you and I both know that that thing's got another 10, 12 years to it. You know what I mean? And that's our expectation to it. But from a life cycle cost, it changes the way we look at things. So we're starting look at things from life cycle costs, net present value, to start doing our infrastructure review, because that's what really catches more the attention of finance. Is just saying, because they're saying, well, it's working, because we equate everything, in my opinion, to our houses, right? You know, when you have to replace the roof on your house, even though you've been in it 30 years, everybody goes crazy because the guy gives you the bill of $17,000-$18,000, and you and your partner go, oh my God, where are we going to get the money from? But you've been in the house 30 years. You know, you haven't putting $1 away every month to save for the roof. Nobody does, you know. So I think that we need to talk in those terms to better deliver our message, and that's part of the plan that I'm talking about, and that's how we have been doing our infrastructure the last couple of years. We have a very complex way we evaluate infrastructure, but we don't talk in the net present value yet. We're just starting to do that, and life cycle costs. I think that we need to move toward that realm as dollars get less, you know what I mean, to start getting more attention. We're moving in Barnabas.
How do you, Jim, and anybody feel free to chime in on this one, how do you, though, you have directors under you, you have managers under you, how do you train, teach, change the mindset to get your managers and your directors comfortable doing that? And what's that process been like as you try to move them forward? Why don't we start with you, Jim, on that one?
I think, let me, 1 second, sorry.
That's okay.
1 second.
Live TV, this is what you get.
I tried to mute it, but my wife didn't hop on it to get it. So.
I didn't hear anything. I honestly didn't.
I think that, you know, we have a very hands-on approach when it comes to these things. So to try to understand, because everyone gets frustrated. And Jordan, same thing. You know, we get the roof. You know, the roof that gets passed on 3 years, right? You know, nobody approves the roof, and next thing you know, you get the call at 2 o'clock in the morning when they're doing that case. It's raining on the OR staff, and it's your fault. So, you know, been there, done that. You know, and part of it is to get everyone to kind of buy into. Like I said, we have a kind of a kind of like an HVA, hazardous vulnerability analysis, the way we do it. So we rate various things, and we weigh it from like age, ASHRAE, you know, what's the age of the equipment, you know, what's its from safety, life cycle cost to is it a safety issue, life cycle, all these various components, and we come up with a number, and we kind of rank it that way. So I think that our staff has been more focused on looking at those particular items in a way that becomes this analysis of how do you rank it to get it approved. You know, and nobody cares about the roofs until it's leaking, right? You know, and I think that we need to continue to put these plans together like that to show that. And I think that's been success. We've done very well getting money in a tight environment by giving these plans, and our senior management has you know, allocated the funds, you know, and I'm very happy about that. Have allocated the funds by looking at the plan. They challenge it, no doubt about it. I mean, it's challenged, and rightfully so, right? There's limited dollars, you know. But I think that the staff's buy-in is that they see the success in the method that we use. And I think that once they see the success, I think that you get the staff buy-in on it.
Ryan, you're kind of that next generation guy, right? You're so you went to a great school to train those engineers. You got the internship. What do you think about kind of what you've heard? And is that mindset that Jim just described, is that baked into you as you have entered and continue to move through the profession?
To an extent, you know, recently just moving jobs, it's kind of made me realize that each place is a different culture, and each place likes to see different things. So yeah, I think it's baked in terms of how to talk to finance or whoever it is and explain what's going on, and especially the importance of it. I think sometimes that folks struggle with, we're talking about roofs, and like you said, you know, no one cares about it until it's leaking. You know, that's not something that happens overnight. It's something that's ongoing, and I think having the studies done and even having the finances for that, you know, way beforehand plays into down the road being able to get funding for a new roof or chiller or what have you. I think it's being taught more and kind of forward thinking in that way instead of waiting and trying to defer maintenance. But it still happens.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, deferred maintenance is no maintenance. I mean, so let's make sure that we understand, you know, what deferred maintenance means.
Sure.
You know, we use those terms. I mean, I can tell you that I've been doing this so long, guys. You know, I can talk about predictive maintenance, you know, PM to break fix to catastrophic failure maintenance, all these various models that I've seen over 30 years, and deferred maintenance. Truly, the metric that's been out there is that, you know, it's 150% more to pay to when you defer maintenance. So that roof will be so much more because the insulation will be rotted out now, right? You'll have decking that will be rotted out, whether it's a steel deck, it'll be corrosion. So all these things happen that is so much more than if we did it the 10 years before him. But in Jordan's case, like he said, you know, people, that was maybe a CFO go or two CFO, right? The plan is not there, you know, and that becomes the issue, that deferred maintenance or no maintenance really, from my experience, happens.
I would like to touch on that too for the younger generation, I guess we're calling me.
Well, is that okay with you?
Yeah, it's completely fine. It is what it is.
You are, all right.
That's a compliment from our end, trust me.
The thought of the every 4 or 5 years moving on for, I think, younger folks is in a strange phenomenon. I think that's almost becoming normal in every industry, and not just facility management, but I mean, my wife does marketing. It's normal in her world. Every 3 years, people are moving jobs. I think it doesn't work that way in facility management quite as well, because you need to be there that long to actually get a handle on everything.
Yeah.
But I think it's becoming less and less of almost a shock, and kind of trying to put the processes in place to try to continue moving forward regardless of who's in the position.
You know, it's funny that you say that, Ryan, because, you know, I think back to, so Jack started the company in 2005. I joined him in 2014. And I think back to those discussions that I would have with candidates, whether, you know, I was working with them for a job or just kind of on informal, you know, hey, Pete, what do you think about this? I remember, you know, I would tell them, you got to be at that role 4 to 5 years before you. And that was kind of that minimum 4 to 5. Honestly, you're exactly right. Now, I mean, you're seeing people move after a year. I mean, you could almost say you're going to be there a year or two. And that's almost what the market is. It's unsustainable, I believe, because like you said, you need to be enrolled. And that's part of, not to promo the network, but that's part of the reason I thought this network is really important, because, you know, the recruiting's still there, but when people are leaving after every 3 to 5 years, then you're having younger people come in who don't necessarily know what they're doing. So how do we tap into guys who are, and gals and ladies who have the expertise to at least, what is this role and what does this job entail? Because you are seeing that people have no idea about compliance. They have no idea about healthcare. And now they're in a management role in a hospital. And you're like, shoot, we all go through hospitals. It impacts all of us. I mean, none of us get away unscathed. So you're exactly right. I mean, you're seeing people move on much more quickly, and it's,
Well, you wrote a great thing, because, you know, going through resumes, used to be IT people that, you know, they went through, you know, IT was always the people that had a year or two, a job, a year, and you would immediately, but you saw a, you know, facilities person that you would pass on their resume.
Absolutely.
Because what's wrong with them? Right.
Yeah, absolutely. That was funny. I still remember we were doing a recruitment, and this is the first time I heard it, and is when the office was still in Mystic, so it was probably 2016, 2017, and I was working with an HR person, and she was younger, and I gave her, you know, resume of a guy, and he had been in his role, it was 13 years, 10 to 13, and she said to me, what's wrong with him? He's been there for too long. And that was the first time I kind of heard of that change, you know, where it's, what's wrong with him? My dad must have been rolling over in his grave when he heard that. But anyway, It is. And now it's completely flipped, right? Where it's people are just moving. and hospitals are scooping them up because that pipeline is bare. I mean, it's bare or becoming bare. What do you think? I want to go back to the complexity part of it. Has the complexity of the role, everything you described right at the beginning, Jim, where everywhere what you're accountable, has the complexity of the role also contributed to a lack of people in the pipeline where it's so complex that you're just naturally not getting people fit? What do you guys think about that? Is the role becoming too complex?
I'll start if you want. I think that the 24/7, on call, and also the needs, and rightly so, right? I mean, there's patients always at risk. There's no power, there's water leaking. That and I view that, right. There's your loved one. I mean, I always tell our contractors, like, you're treating your family in our facility, because most likely you live local. You know what I mean? You're working here,
Right.
And we're here to ensure the safety of your loved ones. I think that there's no doubt that the complexity of the role and the 24/7 attention to it has changed tremendously. There's no downtime, even at a corporate vice president level. I have a few tiers below me. It's you still get the calls, and there's no power, there's a fire, whatever it is. I mean, you need the call, right? Because it's a
Right.
huge issue that you need to be. Can you assist? There's patient issues, regulatory issues, PR issues, all these things that roll into it. I think that it kind of, I've had a couple people leave because they just couldn't, they just did not want, and they were younger folks, obviously in their, late 20s, early 30s, that really did not want that. They wanted, their time off, and in one way I was, like, well, I didn't do that. In one way I said, maybe they're not wrong either. It's a little bit of both.
Yeah. What's the balance?
Right.
I would jump. Go ahead, Ryan.
I've seen, just from my experiences, when I was first got into, I was hired as a facility manager, and it was kind of a shock at first, especially the amount of time that I was putting into it. I was there, 10, 12 hours a day. And then at home, I was getting calls all the time. And my now wife was, what's going on? Why is this a thing? And
why is this a
job? I kind of accepted that. Now, when you start aging a little bit, not that I'm old, but I do have 2 kids and all, family stuff going on, it gets to be even more competitive, because you're also trying to balance, like, telling my wife I'm going to be late, or girlfriend at the time, late for dinner is one thing. Saying I won't be home to help put the kids to bed is a different thing. So I think you get pressures from your home life as well as work. And I think that's, I don't know if it's widely known about the position before people take it, but I think it might scare people away once they're into it.
And just, Jordan, we'll go to you in a sec. Ryan, congratulations. I know that you have a very, very young one at home right now. So I'm sure you're speaking from experience right now. Jordan, how about you?
Well, Pete, I would answer it this way. One of the things I learned, I was, working 7 to 5 days a week, and then some on the weekends, is, it's not sustainable forever. And one of the things I quickly figured out when I was a young facility manager is, hey, I've got to empower my team, right? I have to empower my team. Now, that doesn't fix everything. That doesn't make the phone stop ringing at night. But if you have on-call people and you empower them and ask them to take a first stab at it, and I'm here when you need me, that takes a huge burden off. And so some of the, if you're new to the industry, you want to own it, you're expected to be a leader, and so there's a lot of impressions on what you need to be doing, but it's okay to empower your team. Right. It's okay to ask them to step in and do their best, and to let them know that you have their back once they get into something and they realize, hey, I'm over my head.
And to touch on that further, we talked about the complexity of the job. I don't think that's really changed much. I think, especially with technology and whatnot, it's, if you know how to use the technology, it's actually become a little bit less complex, because there's systems in place on, CMMS and different systems that kind of take some of the load off. But even to touch on what Jordan just said about getting calls at home and whatnot, is you have the ability to send pictures in real time or FaceTime in real time and see what's going on. So I think there's less of actually getting called in and having to come in if there's an emergency. Now, things happen, of course, but
Yeah.
you can handle a lot more from a distance also.
That's an interesting perspective. Jim, I don't know if were you able to hear what Ryan was just saying there relative to the use of technology and pictures, and that's kind of a sea change, right? The technology wasn't there to do that years ago. What do you think about that? What he just said?
Yeah, I think technology has done a lot of reduced a lot of problems. I mean, I can tell you that taking a picture of a flooded parking deck changes the whole people's perspective on stuff versus talking of it. So,
Well,
so I think
too hot, too cold calls, you can address that online, right? You don't have
right.
Yep.
Yeah. So I think definitely, from not, but then again, we have restrictions on our IT phones that we can't take pictures and we can't send pictures. So we have all those issues too that we have to.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm in agreement, Ryan.
Thank you for watching this episode of the Healthcare Facilities Network. Please give this episode a like, as it really does make a difference in helping to promote the discipline of healthcare facilities management.